We are going to start today's session with a conversation with John Stewart, CEO of MapAnything, a successful entrepreneur whom we've done an entrepreneur journey story on, so you may have met him through that already. But today we're going to meet him on camera. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about the genesis of MapAnything. How did you get started? What was the idea, etc.?
So MapAnything did not start as a software company. We started as a Salesforce.com system integrator in 2009. So we were doing, our particular specialty was using the Force.com platform to build mini business operation environments for various small businesses. So we did some hardcore development. It was in October 2011 that one of our clients, Cardella Waste, they approached me and said, really, one of the things for them would be they're very interested in understanding where the dumpsters were on a map, and in particular what counties those dumpsters were in as well, for tax reasons. And so the idea for MapAnything was born, and we built the product and we put it on the App Exchange, which is Salesforce's equivalent of sort of like the App Store on an iOS device. And we put it on their App Exchange in January of 2012.
And what was the idea? What was MapAnything to begin with?
To begin with, version 1, way back when, was simply the idea was visualization of your Salesforce data on a map, understanding things geospatially. It was very simple. It was pins on a map. So the first version of the product is nowhere near what it is today, where we're an entire geospatial visualization and platform built on Salesforce. Very, very simplistic. So just bring your data to life to understand it that way. And that was the idea for the product, and that's how it got launched. That wasn't necessarily the idea for the company, because when we put the product out there in 2012, our primary focus continued to be services work on Salesforce.com. We were a system integrator, as I mentioned. And so the product was a bit of an afterthought. Our journey to being a software company really started to take place later.
So let's actually talk a little bit about your services business, because you're following a methodology, or you followed a methodology of bootstrapping, which we have institutionalized in our program as Bootstrapping Using Services. And we have company after company following that strategy, and we've tremendous number of case studies and success stories using that methodology of building a company. So how far did you get to in terms of revenues from the services business?
So at our peak, our services business was a couple $1 million a year, like $2.5–3 million a year in Salesforce services. We were a very small boutique shop at the time.
Yeah, and so when you launched the MapAnything product with this very simple version 1 product, and you started getting downloads on the Salesforce.com App Exchange, was that a paid product, or was that just a free product?
It was always a paid product from the day it launched. So it was, quite a bit.
Did you figure out what use case people were downloading your app for?
So yeah, it broke down into a couple primary use cases, some sales use cases and some field service use cases. And, we had it on the App Exchange, and we didn't do a lot with it in that first year, but people were still downloading it and buying it, basically. And so we didn't really behave like a software company until we decided to start that transition, meaning that, honestly, we may or may not have responded to a lead earlier. Like, again, it was not the focus of the business. But we did get a lot of really great feedback about the product, and so we did have some early adopters who to this day are still customers, and it became a bit of a following. So
what were they telling you in terms of these sales and field services use cases? What were you learning from these customers of what else did they want in the product? I imagine that's how the product came about, right?
Correct. every time they called, it was usually for, or emailed, it was about adding features or capabilities, which we were happy to listen to, right? But the most important thing we learned from those customers was that if you decide to become a software company, you need to start that transition, because it's really hard to be a software company with just dipping your toes in the water. Necessary for us early on because we self-funded using our services business, of course, right? But,
yeah.
You know, but it is really difficult to kind of be both. And the other thing that we learned was that there's a big difference between having a product on the App Exchange, a software product, and actually being a software company, especially one that will have enterprise clients. And, you know, those early days were instructive for us to learn about the proper way to do releases, the proper way to do support, the proper way to roll out features, the proper way to onboard clients, and it goes on and on and on and on. And so that was very instructive, very educational for us.
And in terms of features, what were you learning? What were the top requirements that would enable you to be a product company?
So sure. The biggest features that the early adopters helped us with, were all features around how to manage large number of users. It had nothing to do with the features of the individual product itself, because, I mean, we had better ideas around those than a lot of our customers, but really on, okay, this is great, but what if I've got 500 users that want to use your product? How do we support them? Like, how do we enable functionality for some but not others? How do we get them trained up? How do we set up your product in such a way? We have this idea of layers, right? Or these, basically think of it as a visual report. How do we roll this out so that I can make one layer for all 500 people to use as opposed to 500 individual layers? It basically, a lot of the early stuff was really about scale. Which was, I'm grateful for it because, today we have.
You weren't thinking about those.
No, not at all. It was just, here's a feature, right? And those were really, in terms of driving adoption, that's less important than basically the supportability. Case in point, like our product today, we're a Swiss Army knife. There's 100 blades in it. Most companies, even enterprise companies, use 2 or 3 business use case specific features and functions, right? But they all have the same issue for rolling it out, supporting it, adopting it at a scale and a volume if you ever want to get to that point. Today, we have over 80,000 users worldwide in 56 different countries, right? So, that's a big part of our success is we kind of figured out the formula early on how to do this at scale.
And what did you do pricing-wise?
So for that was kind of easy for us because we are in the Salesforce.com ecosystem, and they use a per user per month pricing model, and so we just followed their pricing model. Getting the pricing right from day one was a little challenging, right? Obviously you kind of give it away to the early adopters, but after that, we kind of figured out where the kind of sweet spot for our pricing was based on kind of a relative value to the core platform.
Mm-hmm. And what was the price point?
When we launched, the price point was $12 per user per month. But back then, a Sales Cloud software license was $65. And so we pegged it at 20% of the price of the platform, so roughly. So, and that's an important thing, too, because what we learned when we negotiated with procurement officers of these enterprise companies is they always kind of pegged you back to, well, I'm paying this for the platform.
Sure. Very common pricing issue. So now, were you able to close deals just from the App Exchange, or did you have to put telesales and so forth to actually close deals?
Well, until the end of 2013, really, or I should say, I take it back. Until mid-2013, you're talking to the only sales guy. So, like, what I would do is the leads would come off the App Exchange. Whenever someone downloaded, we'd get an email that said, hey, someone downloaded your product. And when I had time, I would reach out, call them, and follow up with them and, sell them a few licenses here and there. As I mentioned, it wasn't until mid-2013 that we decided to say, hey, we're going to try to make a go of this as a software company, and we started hiring inside salespeople to field those and handle those things.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do revenue-wise from the product business in 2013?
2014.
2014.
Yeah. Okay.
Either one.
So,
2013, 14, either, both of them actually.
So our fiscal year runs from February 1st to January 31st. So our fiscal year 2014 was mostly 2013, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell you, actually, I just pull this up. I haven't looked at this.
And while you're doing that, also tell us how did that compare with your services revenue at this point? Because that's one of the interesting points of when a services company is transitioning to a product company. It's always interesting to see how the revenue changes, mix.
So it was $900,000, which was by the end of, so in fiscal year, so in the period that ran from February 1st, 2013 to January 31st, 2014, right, that period where we decided to make the transition, it was about $450,000 in revenue. But it was, we had almost hit 0.9 million annual recurring contracts, so AR. Right, so the way we sell is
product revenue. All of this is product revenue. 450 booked, and then 450 recognized and 900 booked.
Correct.
And how much was your services at this point? About a couple of million still?
About 2.5 million. That was a peak year for our services.
And did you have to invest a lot at this point? So when you go into the 2015 fiscal year, the calendar year of 2014, were you investing a lot to get to the next level?
We were investing everything. So we had basically stopped operating profitably, so to speak, and started pouring all our money into the product. So it was like I said, mid-2013, we decided to make the transition or the switch, right? And it was at that point that we decided to take basically our services revenue, the margin from our services revenue, which, by the way, is not that fantastic, as anybody will tell you on this phone. It's about 35%. And we were piling that into doing marketing and branding for our product. So you raised Series A at some point, and your business is an Atlanta and North Carolina-based business, right? Correct. We were Charlotte, North Carolina headquartered, and our development staff is out of Atlanta.
How did you raise your Series A? At what point and how? And where?
It was quite a bit later. We did not close our Series A. Our Series A was $7.3 million. We did not close our Series A until December 14th, 2015. So it was quite a bit later that we did that.
And what was the revenue level at this point?
So the revenue level, from a recurring standpoint, was $2.3 or $2.4 million of recurring revenue from a forward contracting standpoint. So in December 14th, 2015, when we closed, it was right about there. The actual revenue was probably about the same $3 million or $3.5 million. And the reason being is we were transitioning the company. So by the start of 2015, we'd actually stopped taking new services contracts. And we really started to focus on being a software company. So we stopped chasing services dollars.
And where did you raise your Series A?
So our lead investor, Graycroft, is New York City.
So did you, in the roadshow for raising this money, did you do both East Coast and West Coast, or did you focus just on New York City?
So we tried a little bit of both, but honestly, being an East Coast company, West Coast VCs, they don't really like flying east. So that's a little bit different these days, but when I was doing it, that kind of painted in a certain way if you're East Coast VC. So we kind of figured out that our investment was going to come from the East Coast, and we started to focus on the VCs up and down, Virginia and New York City.
Yeah. And what you raised a $10 million Series B. What were the metrics and how did you get there?
No. We raised a $7.3 million Series. $7.2 million Series A, and then we 13 months later we closed our Series B, and that was $33.3 million was our B.
Oh. So what were the metrics that got you that far?
So in 13 months, we went from $2.5 million in recurring revenue to $8.5 million in recurring revenue. So in a pretty short period of time.
What do you attribute that growth to?
Investing in sales and marketing, really, and and as well as brand equity. We did a lot of brand equity, brand development inside our primary ecosystem, which is Salesforce.com.
What percentage of the leads were coming from the Salesforce.com app exchange? 100%?
Well, no, not even close. Far more of our leads were coming from the trade shows that we sponsor. Salesforce does these world tours, and we would sponsor all of them. And Salesforce would do local regional events, so we'd sponsor every one we could find. And of course, we'd sponsor Dreamforce. And so most of our leads were coming from booth scans at those shows, where we'd scan people come in. And then, of course, as our brand began to build, our App Exchange lead flow continued to grow organically. And then as we invested in the ecosystem and our relationship with Salesforce continues to get tighter and tighter, a lot of it is grassroots effort where we have relationships with the field sales engineers and the field account executives at Salesforce, and they bring us an awful lot of deals. So that's after many, many years of doing brand development and brand equity exercises and all, you name it. So.
Yeah. And are there any, these are all huge pros of operating within the Salesforce.com ecosystem on their platform, on the App Exchange, and so on and so forth. Are there any cons to being beholden to Salesforce.com?
Well, what do you mean by beholden, right?
Well, let me give you an example. There is a company which I'm sure you're familiar with, Aptus, that is also built on the Salesforce.com ecosystem. They built on Force.com, and they got up to $5 million in bootstrapped revenue before they raised any money. Subsequently, they raised a tremendous amount of money and has gone public since.
Aptus got public. Have they? I believe so.
Or at least it's on its way to go public. It has filed, I think, something, one or the other, maybe. But they're very far along at this point. But along the way, Salesforce.com acquired one of their competitors. But Aptus was built on top of Salesforce.com and very, very closely tied to the Salesforce.com ecosystem. So that obviously created challenges for them. So that's really where my question is coming from.
So, sure, I guess there's always risk that Salesforce.com could launch a product that is competitive. I would say with Aptus, though, where they still do very well inside the ecosystem, and Salesforce only bought Steelbrook, which is CPQ, right? Configure, price, quote. Aptus does so much more in their book. Their real thing is enterprise contract lifecycle management, where Salesforce has no product. So yes, there was absolutely a little bit there's a little bit of overlap there that caused some stress when that happened. I think that they could have handled it better and managed through that a little bit better than they did. But from my standpoint, we have also multiple product offerings. We're not single-threaded. So we're a family of platform, a family of field productivity products at this point. So I don't think there's any one thing. I mean, there where from a competitive standpoint, there'd be a situation where they buy any company, and at this point, Salesforce buys companies that don't build product, where it would impinge on our entire book of business. I suppose it's a risk, like there's any risk, but there's plenty of people who still buy new Aptis and continue to renew their Aptis while Salesforce still offers CPQ. So, Salesforce is moving to a little bit of that Oracle model where, Oracle competes and cooperates with the people that build on their platform, right? So.
Well, I think it's the strategy that you have followed is the reason I wanted to showcase your case study is we have seen this story over and over again is you take a small services company that starts on a particular platform and ecosystem, whether it's Salesforce.com, whether it's Intuit, or any number of different platforms, Microsoft platforms, Azure, etc., builds on top of that, gets leads from that ecosystem, gets to a certain scale, starts building further, and then grows to substantial companies, substantial product companies. You can start with system integration work, get to know the ecosystem, get to know the customers, understand what the customers are looking for, and then building a product on top of that. So you've done that very successfully, and it's certainly a blueprint that entrepreneurs listening can pay attention to and replicate in any ecosystem. There's a number of ecosystems that offer that kind of dynamic. So, John, last question to you before we switch to entrepreneur pitches. Where to from here? Where are you now and where are you going?
Right, so we continue to expand our footprint in Salesforce.com. But kind of speaking to some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, our back-end stack is actually built on Amazon. The hard math, the optimization engine, the geofencing, geocoding, that's all built on an Amazon stack that powers our apps on the App Exchange. One of the places we are going in the future, and in fact, it will be announced in about 2 weeks, is we've made our back-end stack available as consumable APIs with secure REST calls. And we actually have other software companies now using our platform to build apps in other ecosystems. And so we were a single app company, or we started as a service company, became an app company. From an app company, went to a suite of apps, and a suite of apps, we're now an API platform company as well, and we're starting to license those APIs to other software companies to develop around. And so that's where we continue to expand.
And where are you revenue-wise in 2017, 18, ballpark?
We'll finish this year close to 30 million in recurring, give or take.
Okay. Great. Well, wonderful story and wonderful, actually, blueprint, which I love because this is something that many entrepreneurs can look at doing in many different ecosystems, as I said. So thank you for sharing.